Hello everybody and welcome back to the multiplayer project where, well, this is a bit of an extensive one. We'll see how far we actually end up getting. I mean, we'll get this done, I'm pretty sure. I'm at that point on the other project anyway, but you'll see here that I've added that we need to change our character appearance message. We're using this syntax now instead of this syntax, and that saves us a byte per field. So that's probably a good thing. So we're going to switch over to that eventually, but that is not what we're going to work on right now, because right now we need to work on client command sending. But in order to do that, we need to be able to send commands in some way. So let's go ahead and minimize this. You'll also notice things look a little bit different. I am on Unity 2019.4.8 F1, which defaults to dark mode, and I'm okay with that. We'll just leave it on dark mode, and just to... oh, hello Warframe. Just to make it match, I also changed Visual Studio over to dark mode. Simple to do, you just go to Tools, Options, change the color theme from blue, which is the default, to dark. Okay, so there's that out of the way. We are then going to immediately dive straight into this, and we are going to go into our canvas and create ourselves a new empty, and we are going to call this the Game UI. Now that'll be toggled on when we actually log in, which currently, of course, is not happening. We're not going to toggle that on just yet. But we're going to go into our UI here, and we're going to create ourselves a new folder, because we are going to need a Game UI folder, just to keep this nice and organized. Inside of the Game UI folder, Origin requires a critical update in 2 hours and 34 minutes. Okay, that's nice. I don't care. We're going to create a new C# script here, and this is going to be called Game UI. Excellent, it did not open. Perfect. We're going to also create a new folder here called Chatbox, because we're going to be using the chat box to send the commands to the server. And we're going to partially support chatting, but it's not going to be complete for a little while yet. And that's going to be via... that's going to be sending it via commands, which is what we are working on right now. So there are a couple more things that we're going to want to do. We're going to want to go into our netcode here and create a new C# script and call that command. Excellent, and that did not open. That we absolutely do want to open. There we go. And this is going to be largely the same as what we have done previously with things like character appearances, but it'll be a little bit different in this case. So the only using that we're actually going to need here is using system.text. We don't need anything else. This will not be a mono behavior. And we're going to need an enum here. Public enum command types. We're doing this in an enumeration so that we can easily add more later. For now, we're going to support chat, move, use, interact, join channel, leave channel, and invite. Many of those are not going to, in fact, none of those are going to do anything yet, because the only thing that we're doing today is client command sending, and then tomorrow is when we're going to parse those commands. So that will not be in this episode, but we will hop back over to our command. Here it is. And inside of this is going to be very similar to what we did previously, except that we're going to use this enumeration for our command type. So public command types, command type. We're also going to take in a public string array called parameters. And that's also a little bit different. Now, most times, we're not actually going to be using this in a class. I'm supporting this as a regular class if we want to store a command and modify it and submit it later or something like that, but most of the time, it's going to be a momentary thing, and for that, we're going to do something a little different. But let's just support having it be a regular class for now, and we're going to do public command to create the constructor, command types type, and as well, params string array parameters. And then all we're going to do is command type equals type, parameters, or rather this dot parameters equals parameters. Excellent. And then we're also going to support a public string to UDP message. We're not going to put anything in that just yet other than return an empty string. There we go. Because we will come back to that in a moment. The big method that we need to support here is a static variant of that. Public static string to UDP message, and that'll be command types type and per with an E type and params string array parameters. So obviously this is static and will return a string, so this will allow us, if we're just converting over to a string to immediately send to the server, we don't need to create a new instance of the command. We can just immediately create the string and just send it off. And that's going to be what we're going to do most of the time. So let's talk about how we're going to create this. This is very similar to how we've created our character appearance strings and things like that. So we'll create ourselves a string builder SB equals new string builder. Excellent. And then we're going to say sb.append. We're going to append in command and then a curly brace. And then we're going to sb.append command type equals, then sb.append. Can we actually, is this a params? Hang on a moment. Have I been dumb this whole time? Int repeat count. Hang on, let's see here. ushort, char, arrays, blah, blah, blah. Do they support putting in params here? No, they do not. Okay, good to know. Just checking. So we're going to put in command type, and then we're going to do sb.append. This is then going to be type.toString, and we're going to pass in the D format. Now what that does is that converts the enum into the shortest possible integer that it can. So if we put in, say, interact, it would output 3. If we put in invite, it would output 6. Now, I think this is how this would normally work without this, but we'll just put it there. It doesn't harm anything. So we'll do if parameters.length is not equal to 0. If we have any parameters whatsoever, we then want to do sb.append, and we want to put in a comma after the command type. Next, we'll need to iterate through our parameters. So we need to say for int I equals 0, I is less than parameters.length, I++. Inside of this, we will do sb.append, and we will append in parameters I. Excellent. And then after that, this is like we did before. If I is less than parameters.length minus 1, we will put in sb.append, and then we'll append in a comma. So only if it's not the last parameter will we put in a comma. Then after that, we will do sb.append a closing curly brace, and then we will return sb.toString. And that's all we need for our command. That's it. We don't need anything else there. So let's go ahead and work on setting up our game UI a little bit here. Wait for that to compile in, and let me pull up my reference here. And just enable that. Excellent. Okay, so inside of this, we are going to leave this as mostly an empty. We're going to set it to stretch across the entire screen, as usual, for these holder objects. And then we're going to put in a UI scroll view. And let's just go ahead and turn off the login screen for now so that we're looking at this a little bit more properly. About like this. I'm wondering why we suddenly don't have a skybox here. It doesn't really matter though. So we'll just get to the back view is actually the one we want to be for the UI. There we go. And then we're going to put this chat box as bottom left, and we're going to set our pivot point to 0, 0, and we're going to have this just be 10 pixels in, and we will have it be 50 pixels up, and then it'll be 500 by 250. We can make this scalable on the user end later on. I'm not concerned about that in the slightest for right now. But we'll go ahead and name this the chat box. And this is going to be obviously where, like, other player chat comes in, server messages would be displayed here, and this would be where you would do your general communication. Now, inside of this scroll rect, we're going to need a couple of things. Let's just go ahead and open up our viewport so we can see the content. We don't really care about our horizontal and vertical. We do want to change the horizontal scroll bar to be simply auto hide. Otherwise, I think we'll have our vertical scroll bar be permanently on, like that. And then we will go ahead and set our vertical scroll bar to go the entire distance down to the bottom. Perfect. Now we'll go to our viewport here, actually to our content, or, here, our chat box image here. We're going to go ahead and set this to black. There we go, just so that that has a little bit better of contrast. So now we're going to need to put in a UI input field TextMesh Pro, and we are going to name this chat input. Wonderful. And we are going to have this stretch along the top, and it's going to stretch 0 on the left and 0 on the right. Its Y position is going to be negative 250, but we are going to have to set the pivot point here. The Y pivot should be at 1, so that should be negative 250 again. So that just puts it right at the very, very bottom there. We don't actually want any placeholder text, so we will get rid of that. And that's all we need for our actual chat input box. We'll turn that off for right now, so we'll just disable that. And then let's go into our game UI chat box here, and let's create ourselves a new C# script, and we will call that chatbox. Wonderful. And we will also, in the content, create a UI TextMesh Pro. We will set up in the content for it to be a vertical layout group, and we will have it be padded 5 pixels in each direction, but no spacing. It can control the child width and height. The text here should really be much smaller. We're going to go with size 14, but we are going to give it a drop shadow just to make sure it pops a little bit better if we're over a particularly light object here. And we'll just put in some temporary text here, and this is going to be something along the lines of timestamp channel. Actually, I typoed it. Timestamp channel character name. Some chat text that may even wrap to another line, :0. Okay, wonderful. And then we will also give that, let's see here, this needs a content size fitter in the content. So we'll put that in, and our horizontal fit is going to be unconstrained, but our vertical fit is preferred size. So at this point, it automatically sizes our text here so that it's like, oh, there's another line here. And if it even goes down to a third line, that's fine. It supports that. So that's wonderful. And then we can duplicate that. And if we have this not go all the way down to a second line, it just stops there. That's great. It supports that too. Wonderful. Now we don't need these here. And let's go ahead and rename this to chat text. And we're going to turn this into a prefab. I just want to make sure that we don't need to have anything else here. Let's see, we're size 14. Yeah, this all looks absolutely correct. So we're going to pop this down here into a prefab, and we're going to delete it. We will spawn those in as needed later on. So that is wonderful. That gives us our chat box here. And now we need to do the actual code for the chat box. So let's do that, but let's also open up our game UI because I want to do that first. So let's open up our game UI script here. The only thing we're going to need to use here is using Unity Engine. We are not going to need a start function, but we are going to need an update function. So for now, let's do region keybinds, and we're not going to hardcode most of these keys. Actually, technically, we're going to hardcode one key here, Actually, we don't strictly speaking have to. So region, this would then be, we need to set this to end region. What am I doing? End region. There we go. We'll do 2 keybinds here, and this is public key code, and we'll call this open chat input box for now. And then we'll also, we may rename that later. It's going to be enter, which is going to be possibly reused for other things. We'll also do a key code, and this is going to be escape. So we're going to need to probably call this something like back out of something. I don't know. I hard-coded previously, so I don't have a good name for it. This is not really a good name. Maybe just key code exit? Hey, except that might be confused with exiting the application. Exit UI element, perhaps? I guess we could say that that's good. We're also going to give this a header so that this shows up a little bit nicer in the inspector. So header keybinds. And then we're going to create ourselves one more region here. This is going to be a region public references. And this is going to also be headered. So header references. And we're going to need 2 references here. Public chatbox, which we just made the script, but it doesn't do anything. And we're also going to reference the public net manager. Excellent. And while I'm thinking about it, let's hop over to Net Manager and support the game UI. So we already have the game UI set up over here, I believe. Let's see here. I did in the previous one. Oh, that should be in the UI manager. Right. So in the UI manager, we need the public game UI, like that. So we'll set that up, and I'll do that now before I forget to. So we'll set up in the UI manager here. We should, oh, it's not going to compile because it's expecting an end region directive. Yes, it is. End region. Wonderful. Now hopefully it'll compile. Yes. Okay, so we'll hook up the game UI here. Except the game UI does not have a game UI script on it. So we'll put that on and hook that up. Excellent. We will now hop over here. And we are going to, this is the server. We'll hop over here into the UI manager. And actually we've already done that. In the net manager, we need to, when we log in here, we no longer want to show this modal. This is no longer useful to us. Instead, we want to, let me pull open the net manager here. We want to do uimanager.gameUI.gameObject.setActive true. Wonderful. So we'll turn on the game UI when we have successfully logged in. Now, is there anything else that we need to do in the net manager? There will be, but for now, that should do the trick. So the game UI is automatically turned on when we log into the character. Excellent. So there are a couple of things that we're going to need to do in the game UI. Most specifically, we're going to need to do 2 major if statements in the update section here. So we're going to do if input.getKeyDown is open chat input box. Then first we need to check if our chat box is currently being edited. So if not chat box editing, which doesn't exist, then we want to say chatbox.onOpenChatInput. We want to fire this event. Now that doesn't exist either, but that's okay. Otherwise, if I can spell it correctly, if we are currently editing the chat box and we press the enter key, which we've not assigned yet, then we're going to go ahead and do chatbox.onSubmitChat. Excellent. Then that handles pressing the enter key. Then we need to say if input.getKeyDown, and that is going to be our exit UI element. Then we need to say if chatbox.editing, which again doesn't exist yet. So if we are editing the chat box right now, then we need to do chatbox.onEndChat input, which doesn't exist yet because we haven't implemented the chat box. So that's all we need to do for now for the game UI. There will be much, much more in the game UI later. But we need to hop over to the actual chat box and start doing that. But first, before we do that, let's go ahead and in the game UI here, set up our keybinds. So we want this to be return, which is enter, but keep in mind that is not keypad enter. That's a different key code. And we can upgrade our keybinds later on to support multi-keybinds. But for now, we'll have that be enter and this be escape. Then we'll put the chat box on the chat box element here, and we will tell the game UI, this is the chat box, this is the net manager. Okay, so there's the game UI setup. So let's hop over to our, not our server, let's hop over to our chat box here. And we're going to need a couple of things that we're using here. We're not going to need system.collections. We are going to need system.collections.generic. We're also going to need using system.link. Perfect. We're not going to need a start or an update here. We are going to need a region here. This is going to be const fields. We're only going to have the one const field for now. Public const int max chat objects equals 100. So essentially what this is the maximum amount of text objects that we can spawn and store in our chat log. Once we reach 100 chats, it will start recycling them, so that it's not just constantly making new chat objects every time a chat comes in. That's the idea here. And then we're going to do region public references. We'll end that region. We're also going to need a region for public fields, as well as one for private fields. And we'll end that region as well. And then we'll need a few methods down below, but actually we'll do a region for that. This will be region, we'll call this chat edit events, as well as region external events. And we'll end that region as well. Okay, so in the public references, we are going to need references to a few different things. We'll do a public game UI. So we'll need a reference to our up-level manager here, essentially. We'll need a public tmpro.tmp input field. There we go. And we'll call that chat input. And I'm just going to capitalize this G. I'm trying to make this more normal, where my public references are capitalized along with properties and fields are not for that first one. It's just a habit I'm not super into and I need to be. We'll do public tmpro.textmeshpro UGUI, this guy right here, and that's going to be chat text prefab. And then we will also do public transform content transform. And that's all the public references that we're going to need. For our fields, we're going to need one public and one private field. So for now, we will do public bool editing equals false. That'll start off as false. And then our private field here is going to be private list of tmpro.textmeshpro UGUI. Chat messages equals a new list of that same type. Wonderful. So that's all we will need for variables for our chat box. So let's go ahead and start setting up our chat edit events. We will need 3 of these. Public void on open chat input. We will also be needing public void on submit chat. And we will also need one more, and that is public void on end chat input. Excellent. So that should make it so we no longer have any errors over here, and the whole thing should compile. That's nice. And then we'll do in the external events, public void add chat message, and that would be string text that takes in. Okay, we'll come back to these in a moment. We'll do on open chat input first here. This is going to be pretty simple, this particular method, and it's just going to be chat input.gameObject.setActive true. Chat input.text equals, we're just going to reset the text when we open it up. We shouldn't have what we had previously. And then chat input.activate input field. Chat input.select, just to make sure that when we hit the enter key, that is actually, oh, we need parentheses there. Just to make sure that when we hit that enter key, that it automatically selects it. Wonderful. And then finally, editing equals true. That's all we need for when we are firing our onOpenChat event. For our onSubmit chat event, this is going to be a little bit more complicated. Let's actually do onEndChat input first, because that one's going to be very simple. That's just editing equals false, and then chat input.gameObject.setActive false. That's all we do for onEndChat input. So for onSubmit chat, the very last thing that we want to do here is call onEndChat input, because we are going to be done editing, and we do want the box to go away. So that's fine. But this is going to be a little bit more complicated, because first we need to check if this is a command. So we will do if chat input.text, we're just checking the first character here, is equal to a slash. And actually, let's do this as a character rather than a string. So if it is equal to that, this is a command attempt. We should submit it as such. Otherwise, if our first character is not a slash, then this is, there we go, just a chat message. And yes, I did typo this. There we go. This is just a chat message. We should submit that on the current channel to do. We are not going to fully support chats just yet. It will kind of support them, I suppose, but not fully for a little bit. So, first thing we need to do is figure out what command this is. So we're going to grab a string array called command inputs, and that's going to be chat input.text.split, and we're going to be splitting this on a space. Excellent. I just thought of something. Oh boy, here we go again. Oh, I know what's going on. Okay, so the thing that I just thought of is I wasn't taking into account the fact that the first character here is always going to be this slash. We need to ignore that first character. So we need to do something along the lines of string command equals, and this is something that we were doing previously, command inputs 0.to lower. So that will just convert to lowercase so that case doesn't matter as much. It's strictly speaking not case insensitive comparison, but it's close enough for our purposes. And then we need to say command.trim, and we want to trim the we want to trim out that slash. We want to make sure that that does not exist. And then we want to do a switch statement, and that is command. There we go. And then we're going to do a few cases here. First off, case chat. And we'll just break for right now. Case move. And we'll also break. Case use. We'll break that. And then case interact. We'll break. Case join. We'll break that. Case leave. There we go. We'll break that. And actually, we'll call this join channel and leave channel. Actually, yeah, there we go. We'll also do case invite break, as well as default break. And actually, I want to support one more here. We're not doing this on server side, so it doesn't really matter. So case leave party break. Okay. Excellent. And that does, of course, mean that we need to go into command here, and we need to do leave party here as well. Wonderful. So we are parsing our commands here, and we might want to put this in a different function later on if this gets too much, but for right now, this will be fine. So we'll just put up a command type up here, command types, command type. Excellent. And all we're going to do here is command type equals command types.chat. And then I'm just going to copy this and paste this into each of these. So that's much, much easier and quicker. There we go. And then this will be command types.move. This will be command types.use, command types.interact. Difference there is interact is interacting with a world object, whereas use is using an item or ability. This is then going to be join channel. This is going to be leave channel. This is going to be invite. Yeah, invite. Leave party. And default, we're going to leave at .chat. Excellent. So our command type is now assigned. And then down here, after we know what our command type is, as well as what parameters we have here, we can just go ahead and do GameUI.NetManager.SendCommand, which doesn't exist yet. We'll get to that. And we're going to do a static call to command.toUDPMessage, and this is going to be command type, as well as command inputs, and this is why we needed link here. We're going to skip the first index in this array, .toArray. Excellent. So the reason we're skipping the first index here is because we already are putting in our command type. We're parsing that out here, and technically we don't necessarily need to do that. We could just pass this whole thing, but we might want to do something client-side with some of these commands, so that's why I'm supporting that here. So we need to hop into NetManager and support send command. So let's do that. And that is going to be very, very simple, just one line of code. We're going to do public void send command, and that is going to be string command text, like that. And we're going to do client.send. This is going to be message types.cmd, which doesn't exist. We'll get to that. And command text. Wonderful. So let's hop into our comms enums here, and we are going to do a cmd type. That is a command. And then that is going to be a header, and we are going to pass in a command, and that is going to be ... etc., etc. And a closing parenthesis, like that. Let's also copy that and paste that into our server's comms enums. Wonderful. Okay, so I think, unless we have anything else that I've forgotten to hook up here, UI Manager knows about GameUI, GameUI knows about that. The chat box may not know about its items. Correct. Okay, chat box needs to know about the GameUI, it needs to know about chat input, it needs to know about the chat text prefab, which is this guy right here, and it needs to know about its content transform, which is this one. Now, I think that there's still one more thing that we have not put into the chat box, and that is add chat message. So let's go ahead and support that quickly. This is a pretty simple thing. So if our chat messages, not massages, chat messages dot count is less than max chat objects, and I'm not sure why it didn't IntelliSense that. It really probably should have. Okay. Kind of strange. So if we have fewer than our maximum, then we're going to need to create a new one. tmpro.textmeshPro UGUI. And technically we could just use a using for using tmpro. But for whatever reason, I never really feel like doing that. We're going to do a new text equals instantiate chat text prefab. And we'll also toss in the transform parent, which is going to be content transform. Wonderful. Oh, I need to capitalize that. That's why it was freaking out. Okay, there we go. And then all we need to do here is new text dot text equals text. Wonderful. Next, we need to say if we are at our maximum chat object count, then we need to grab the oldest message and replace it. So that is going to be tmpro.textmeshPro UGUI old text equals chat messages 0 chat messages.remove at 0, so that will remove the oldest one from there. And then we need to... Oh, this needs to be parentheses, not square brackets. What am I doing? There we go. Remove at 0, and then old text.text equals text. And then we need to say chat messages dot add old text, which is all well and good, but this is not going to place it at the bottom of the transform. And now that I think about it, I need to look up the actual syntax for doing that. So I'm just Googling Unity set transform to be bottom child. That set object to be bottom child? Perhaps? Change position of child object in hierarchy at runtime. That sounds like what we want to do. Yeah, set sibling index. And then I think we would just use... So it would be something along the lines of chat messages.transform, or rather .game object? Oh, no, wait. Chat messages... What am I doing? Chat messages... I need to do old text. Old text dot transform dot set as last sibling. That would do. Excellent. So that would put us right at the end there, which is perfect for what we want to do. So that'll be our add chat message right there. Excellent. So now we are sending our command in theory. So let's set up in the server dealing with that command. So right here in the process message enum, or rather process message switch statement, we're going to do case message types.cmd cmd message requesting an action to be taken. And we will just do a process cmd message, and we'll pass in the message and the client session for if we need to send anything back to the client. Wonderful. And of course, we are going to do public void process cmd message. We'll take in string message and session client session. Excellent. All we're going to do here for right now, because processing these is in next episode, for all we're going to do right now is process... What am I talking about? All we are going to do right now is just debug that we received it. So system.diagnostics.debug.writeLine, and that is going to be simply message. And that's all we should need to do for the server. So let's go ahead and fire up the server. There we go. And let's turn the game UI off and the login screen on. And let's run the client. Okay, ASDF, wait for the encryption handshake, it's done. We submit, we'll log in on ASDF. We're receiving game state updates, perfect. We hit enter, that appears. We type in test. Nothing happens because it's not a command. We type in, it is gone when we reopen it. We type in test, we hit escape, it goes away. Perfect, that all seems to work just fine. And then we are going to do let's do /move. So that should have sent a /move command with no parameters to the server, which will output that it has received a command of type 0. Really? Interesting. The reason I say that that is interesting is because a command of type 0 is going to be the default. That's a chat type. It should have received a command of type 1. So I'm guessing that this trim isn't doing exactly what I wanted it to. Yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted. I mean, we could just do command equals, or we could just grab dot substring from index of 1. So that'll just exclude the first character. And yes, obviously, you're going to have some issues because of the recompile. Okay. Let's make sure that that works. But that was clearly a problem in our text parsing. Okay, so ASDF. We will await the encryption handshake completing, which is a variable amount of time, reasonably quick that time. We'll enter the world and /move. The server should have received, yes, command type equals command type 1. Wonderful. Okay, so the server is now receiving the command, and if we were to send parameters, let's do so. Let's do /move, and we'll say that we're going to want to move to, say, 270, 133. Of course, that doesn't actually do anything, but command type equals 1, 270, 133. Wonderful. So that works perfectly. Parsing those commands and doing something with them is something, however, for the next episode. So let's hop over to our to-dos here, and we will just open that up. Client command sending is done. Next up is entities, so that we can show that something is happening, and server command parsing. After next, we are going to do something. I don't yet know if it's going to be client input to command interpretation, but we'll put that there for now. That'll be okay. So yeah, actually processing it and displaying the results on the client is going to be next episode. So things that this will include is seeing our motion in game state updates, sending chat. There we go. And we'll have to set up some different chat channels and things like that. So, with that, I think we're pretty ready to call it a day for today. We've got our commands going in, and it all seems good. So, I'm going to go ahead and put a cut in here. And like I said, next episode, this is what we are going to be working on. Until then, yes, I'm okay with that origin. You can go away. Until next episode, You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and I'll see you all next time.